Welcome back to the water cooler, everybody. So does Trump hate the Jews? We know what the answer is from liberals. They say, heck yes. But what we've learned in life is that if the liberals say one thing, then it's actually the exact opposite. So let's explore all of this and start with Trump's Truth Social post earlier this month when he said this, quote, do I have to do my Trump impression here? No president has done more for Israel than I have. Somewhat surprisingly, however, our wonderful evangelicals are far more appreciative of this than the people of the Jewish faith, especially those living in the U.S. Those living in Israel, though, are a different story. Highest approval rating in the world could easily be PM. I'm sorry. That makes me laugh. U.S. Jews have got to get their act together and appreciate what they have in Israel before it's too late. And as you might expect, right on cue, you had the anti-Semitic Trump headlines all over the place. The liberal media couldn't get enough of what they saw as easy Trump bashing. And then, well, there's liberal MSNBC, who in an ironic and sick twist, but actually put on the anti-Semitic Ilhan Omar to complain about Trump's comments. Have a look.
Yeah, I mean, the hypocrisy of the Republicans is blatantly clear as they are not rushing out to condemn the president the former president who knowingly, repeatedly invokes, do loyalty tropes that are harmful and dangerous. As you know, anti-Semitism is on the rise, and all of us have a responsibility to condemn it and to continue to have someone as the former president with his platform continuously speaking to his white supremacist base in such a language. It's very scary and dangerous, and we have to condemn it in the strongest ways possible.
Ah, yes, the biggest Jewish ally in the world. You're looking at Ilhan Omar. Look, I'd rather watch Beto O'Rourke get another root canal live on Instagram than watch Ilhan Omar spout that fake nonsense on MSNBC. Ilhan Omar, a lover of the Jews? Yeah, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd love to sell you as well. All right, joining me now to discuss this and a whole lot more is the managing director for the Coalition for Jewish Values, our good friend, Rabbi Yaakov Menken. Rabbi Menken, good to see you, sir.
Glad to be back with you.
Well, Trump and the Jews, as Trump would say. The floor is yours. What do you got?
You know, there's actually a new village in the Golan Heights named Trump.
That's right. That's right. Ilhan Omar going to visit there on vacation, I'm told. No, maybe not.
Yeah. So this is the thing. It's like everything that the former president said in that post is true. The Israelis love him overwhelmingly. The observant Jewish community, for that matter, also loves him overwhelmingly, even here in America. Evangelicals love him overwhelmingly and back everything he did. Meanwhile, American Jews are turning away from Israel to a very alarming extent at a time when Israel is in danger. And it was quite obvious that unless you take that quote out of context, and I've seen one example where they actually deliberately carved out the clause involving Israel, said American Jews better get their act together and appreciate Israel before it's too late. That was obviously not a threat. That was an expression of concern for Israel. And, this is something where if anybody else had said it, the leftists would have completely gotten it and appreciated it, or maybe not if they're actually anti-Israel. Mm-hmm. And having the press secretary claim that, oh, yeah, you see, the Democrats, we're dealing with the anti-Semitism. The Republicans are not. Really? Ilhan Omar is still sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and she's still going on MSNBC. It's like, having her there to talk about anti-Semitism, I said, that's appropriate because she's certainly an expert in anti-Semitism. She uses an anti-Semitic trope every day and twice on Shabbos. So, okay, that's her expertise in anti-Semitism.
I don't even know where to start or begin or end. All right, so let me ask you this. Here's what the media, maybe they don't get it or they get it and just don't want to say it. I think it's the latter. Look, this isn't hard to understand, right? You've got secular Jews in America, mostly from the Reform Judaism movement, if you will, that are liberal in nature. And this idea that you mentioned the Orthodox Jews, you mentioned evangelicals, well, they love Trump. Why? I mean, it's all biblically based. It's all about if you're going through with Judeo-Christian principles that are laid out in the Bible, you're going to understand what Trump is saying. If you're coming from a secular liberal standpoint, which many American Jews do, you're never going to understand it. Am I missing something here, or what's going on?
No, I think you've honestly nailed it. I mean, unfortunately, we have a situation here in America where the overwhelming majority of Jews are going one way and the overwhelming majority of rabbis are going the other. And the reason why it works that way is, and that's, of course, with the rabbis go the Orthodox community, because the Orthodox are producing more rabbis in a day than all the liberal movements do in a year, because Jewish education is very valuable to us. So the people who actually know the books, they're the ones who are able to go look in those books and say, well, what would Maimonides tell us about this? What would the Code of Jewish Law tell us about this? What are the signs and symptoms of anti-Semitism? It's all there. It's not hard. We've been dealing with it for thousands of years. We know that Trump is not an anti-Semite. And we know that Omar, by the way, she paraphrases Mein Kampf. It's that bad.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Just to be clear on Trump, and you tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, tell me what you think. This whole thing about Trump being anti-Semitic is ridiculous, obviously. But beyond all of that, if he's guilty of anything, it might be a bit of ignorance in this idea that if you're Jewish, you're going to definitely support Israel. Now, that might be a conservative / Orthodox / Hasidic, view. But if you're an American Jew, I mean, it is a bit ignorant to think, if you understand Reform Judaism, you're going to understand that if you're an American Jew, if you're a Reform American Jew, you're probably, you may support Israel, but you're actually going to be more like with the poor Palestinians as well. So this idea that Trump thinks that all American Jews should support Israel might just be a little bit more kind of basic and ignorant on his part. What's your view on that?
I mean, a member of the Jewish people, you are part of the Jewish people. Mm-hmm. And so you see that a person's individual beliefs are not whether or not the person is a member of the Jewish people. Great. So you have all of these people who are there. They titular, they may claim to be Reformed because they go 3 times a year, or they may claim to be what they call now the Jews of no religion. These are members of the Jewish people who get their values from progressivism. And they're not getting their values. And that's, by the way, that's because the Reform movement, when they started in the mid-19th century, they said, progressivism is what we're looking for. We look forward to being able to progress beyond the Bible in terms of our morality. Well, that's worked out rather terribly because you don't actually improve on the Bible. There's no getting better. What there is getting worse. In fact, they're regurgitating a whole bunch of old ideas and claiming they're new. So, but this is their religion. Their religion is to be progressive. And of course, in the mid-19th century, they would have never imagined what that would mean today. But that is what they are promoting today.
Yeah, for sure. As Trump would say, the Bible is the best. The Bible is the thing, is what he would say. The thing, the best. All right, I want to move on to something else that involves the Anti-Defamation League. Your group is calling for the ADL leader, Jonathan Greenblatt, to step down. The latest incident has to do about what they said about this Tucker Carlson clip. They didn't like what he said, and there's a tweet involved. We'll get to that in a moment. Here's a portion of what Tucker said.
And just in case you think that we are taking Tiffany Cross out of context and pulling the worst quotes from a out of context segment to make her seem crazy and racist, here's more. Here's Tiffany Cross at MSNBC.
Look, a lot of folks in that Capitol insurrection, some of these folks were white women. And I know we're talking a lot about Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, but I do think that some of the white women who have adopted this ideology, is America ready to face the fact that some of those folks look like people they have elevated and put on a pedestal of being untouchable? What do you say about this wing of white women who have been radicalized and are enablers to this very dangerous domestic terrorism movement that we've seen increase quite rapidly?
So it's not just whites, it's white women. Their women are bad too. And women, of course, are the key to reproducing the white race, which is clearly a threat, as she says again and again, to you and your family. They're dangerous. They want to hurt you. Now, don't be fooled by the fact that Tiffany Cross can barely speak a coherent sentence. She was a communications major, apparently, according to the internet. That didn't work. But the gist of it is very, very clear. White women are dangerous because white people are dangerous. They are, by the nature of their DNA, potential domestic terrorists.
All right, so follow this here. The ADL retweeted a tweet where someone called those comments to be full Nazi. And we're going to put up the screen quote. This is what the ADL said. Tucker Carlson has again used his platform to stoke racial tensions, falsely and dangerously accusing a black MSNBC host of instigating a genocide against white people. His incitement and his trivialization of the Rwandan genocide must be forcefully condemned. Now, to be clear, of course, that ADL tweet was part of a retweet where they didn't say anything about the person who invoked the term full Nazi regarding Tucker's comments. So your group said this in response to all of it. Quote, minimizing the Holocaust is never acceptable, said CJV President Rabbi Yoel Schoenfeld. And to compare anyone to a Nazi does just that unless that person is calling for genocide or at least inciting violence. Were the ADL even minimally competent, it would call out, not endorse, a ridiculous tweet claiming that Tucker Carlson went full Nazi. Under Greenblatt, the ADL is incompetent to fight anti-Semitism at a time when it is on the rise. He must step down. So take it from there, Rabbi Menken.
So first of all, I don't know where the Rwandan genocide or genocide comes in. I actually watched the full 10 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And I missed, if he said anything about genocide at all, it wasn't in the 10-minute clip that was being shared. So I don't know exactly what that was about. But what I do know is when you say somebody went full Nazi, you must at the very least be talking about somebody who's actually inciting to genocide, actually trying to make sure a genocide happens. If you listen to Tucker Carlson and you listen to those horrible quotes from Tiffany Cross, and you were to simply reverse the races, imagine somebody saying about black women the things that Tiffany Cross said about white women. And everybody would call it racist. And everybody would say that what Tucker Carlson was saying was crucial to racial reconciliation and unity in this country. So that's the first part, that Tucker Carlson didn't say anything wrong. He just said, it, I guess it's politically incorrect to call out a black woman who seems to be instigating racism against white women when, you know, obviously the other way around is deplorable and disgraceful. The thing is that to really be a non-racist is to be the one who says it doesn't matter which race is against which race. It's all bad. Mm-hmm. That's what we're supposed to be looking for. Now then, this quote said, went full Nazi. And the folks at the ADL retweeted that tweet. There were a lot of tweets that contained this video clip. There are a lot of tweets that were criticizing the video clip. But they went and they took one that said the words went full Nazi. That was our problem. That's where you cross a line, because the ADL's job is not to have a vendetta against Tucker Carlson, which Greenblatt seems to have. He goes after Carlson every month. It's a ridiculous recurring theme at the ADL now. But the other part of it is that their job is supposed to be fighting anti-Semitism and minimizing the Holocaust. That's what you do when you say that somebody who's obviously not a Nazi is a Nazi. You're making Nazis seem smaller than they are. That's very dangerous to us. That's something that the ADL, were it doing its job responsibly, would never have done.
Yeah. So why are they doing it? What have they bought into? What's happened at the ADL as to why they'll let the full Nazi language pass and they'll go after Tucker Carlson instead?
Well, the problem seems to be, and here we go right back to education about anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. For decades, the ADL under Abe Foxman was a left-wing liberal organization, yes, but they really did try to call out anti-Semitism in a non-biased fashion. Since 2015, when Jonathan Greenblatt took over, Jonathan Greenblatt comes from the Obama administration. He has a long history of social justice entrepreneurship, or whatever you want to call it. He's done a lot of good things with his time, but one of the things he has never done is fight anti-Semitism. And he has no knowledge in it. He has no learning behind it. So all he has is his left-wing politics, and he's nearly, like, one time last year, he finally said something about left-wing anti-Semitism when it was simply becoming too obvious that the anti-Semitism that's endangering students on campus and endangering Jews walking the streets of Brooklyn is coming from the left and not from the right.
Yeah,
There's a lot of the left wing, including in the Jewish community, that simply cannot acknowledge that reality. It is fortunate that some branches of the ADL New York branch in particular, actually address this issue and actually care about it. But Jonathan Greenblatt had to be dragged kicking and screaming to finally acknowledge there is such a phenomenon, and he's never called for consequences. Meanwhile, like I said, repeatedly, every month or two, he's calling for Tucker Carlson's to be fired.
Yeah, I've got about a minute left, maybe a little less than that. What's your message to folks when they use the term Nazi? I don't want to get into the whole Hitler stuff because that feels maybe a bit different. Anyhow, I don't want to get into that right now. But when people use the soup Nazi and this, now you're a Nazi. What's your message? I mean, what do you tell fellow not just Jews, but people that you come into contact with about that term? I've got about 45 seconds left.
I think Soup Nazi was actually making fun of this phenomenon that everybody is being called a Nazi over all kinds of things that absolutely are inappropriate. Minimizing the Holocaust is what this is all about. You're making it out that people who are relatively innocuous were Nazis. That means you're saying that Nazis were relatively innocuous. If you think that Adolf Hitler was like Donald Trump, something is wrong with you. And you're really just papering over a guy who was willing to murder 6 million Jews just because they were Jews. Mm-hmm. If you care about anti-Semitism, you're not going to minimize it like that.
That's a great analogy, right? It's like Trump did not exterminate 6 million Jews, so lay off of it and don't go there for a myriad of different reasons. Rabbi Yaakov Menken, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really good stuff. And I still want to know every time I see him, does he read all those books behind him? Before we head to break, Joe Biden says, don't believe the polls when it comes to the economy. Okay, Joe, we're going to go with that. Here's part of an interview where the MSNBC interviewer spins and then Joe spins back.
Here's a problem, I think, for you and Democrats. Despite all the good economic news, low unemployment, record job creation, wage increases, Social Security, cost of living adjustment to 8.7%, the highest in 40 years. And yet, poll after poll shows that the American people trust Republicans on the economy and think that Republicans should control Congress. How do you break through that?
I'm not sure about the polls because, the way people conduct polls today, it's hard. 90% of it is you get on a telephone where you have to call 7 times to get somebody to answer the phone. Number one. Number two, a lot of what we've done and we've passed has not kicked in yet. For example, we have all this money to rebuild the highways, bridges, internet, et cetera. But it's going to take time. It's not all happening overnight. It's not like we passed the law and all of a sudden the highways and bridges are all functioning.
Hey, Joe, why don't you get back to me after the midterms? Let me know how that turns out for you, okay? Look, folks, we know that in this economy, we need to protect our money. I mean, the last time we went through a recession, there were stocks that literally went to zero, Washington Mutual, Lehman Brothers, Chrysler, multiple blue chip stocks that went to little or no value almost overnight. So could that happen again? And if it did, are your savings protected? Well, why not own something that has never been valued at zero? Gold. Historically, it's your best hedge against inflation, which is rising faster than my waistline at Thanksgiving. The savviest Americans diversify their savings to protect them from downturns in the market, from global instability to increased national debt and a devaluing dollar. Chances are you're looking for a way to diversify too. So here's how you get started. Contact Birch Gold Group. Find out how to own gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Let's put up the number. There it is. Text America to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free information kit on diversifying into gold tax-free. In fact, even if you have a 401k or an IRA that's underperforming, that's okay. You can convert that into an IRA in precious metals. There it is again. Text America 989898. We're back in a moment with the last set.